The sun beat down like a hammer on rusted metal over the open-air market of Solaris Prime. The air carried the heavy stench of spice, sweat, and overheating machinery, swirling through rows of crooked vendor stalls made from repurposed ship hulls and plastic tarps. Traders barked over one another, fighting to be heard as creatures from dozens of star systems weaved through the noise, clutching bags, cages, or data slates. Ren moved through the crowd like a ghost, his pace steady, his eyes unfocused. He wasn't there to shop. His boots kicked up reddish dust with every step, his worn black jacket fluttering behind him, patched in too many places to count. The scar under his left eye ached in the heat, but he ignored it. He wasn't looking for trouble or connection. He was just passing through, a wanderer with no destination. Then he heard it, not a scream, not a shout, but something small, something weak. "Please, please help my children." Ren froze. He turned his head slowly toward the sound. Amid a tangle of closed stalls, a shape slumped to the ground in front of a sealed crate. A woman, alien, delicate with pale, bluish-gray skin and torn robes that once might have held dignity. Her arms were outstretched before she collapsed. Two children clung to her legs, one girl and one boy, both thin and too quiet for their age. People passed them, some looked, most did not. A few whispered, "She's one of them. That widow curse, bad luck. She's just trying to trap a citizen mate." No one stopped. Not one person bent down, not one hand reached out. Ren did. He stepped forward, brushing past a merchant who hissed at him to mind his own business. He knelt beside the fallen woman, his shadow covering her face. Her breathing was shallow, her skin too cold for this heat. She lifted her head slightly and locked eyes with him. Her pupils were wide, the red iris almost glowing. "You're human," she rasped. Ren nodded. "Please become my husband. Take my children." The words hit him like a freight hauler. "What?" Before he could say another word, her eyes rolled back. She collapsed. The children didn't scream. They didn't even cry. They just looked up at him, their big eyes silently pleading. The girl, slightly older, held her little brother close. They were dirty, too thin, and terrified. Ren looked around. No one came. No medics, no security. Just more whispers. "Don't touch her, she's marked. She's just looking for a status bond. It's a scam." Ren ignored them. He leaned down, checked her pulse. Faint, but there. Carefully, he lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. The children followed, holding onto the hem of his pants. People stared, a few jeered. There goes another soft-hearted human. He doesn't know what he's getting into. But Ren didn't care. He carried her through the winding alleys of the market, past crates of fruit and old robotics, until he reached a rust-stained loading bay. A rented cargo pod sat there, his for the next 48 hours. It wasn't much, just one room, one bed, and a heater, but it was safe. He laid the woman on the bed and turned to the children, who sat cross-legged on the floor. "Here," he said, reaching into his pack. He handed them a small water bottle and half a protein bar. The girl took it. She broke it in half and gave the larger piece to her brother. "What's your name?" Ren asked gently. The girl hesitated, then answered in a quiet but firm voice. "Nari, my brother is Kyo." "And your mother's?" "Vela," she whispered. "She's very sick." Ren sat down, running a hand through his hair. "Why were you in the market?" "Looking for help if we didn't find someone today." She said she would give up. She hasn't eaten in days. A lump formed in Ren's throat. "Your father." Nari shook her head. "He died in the fire." Ren looked at Vela. Her lips were dry, her cheeks sunken, her arms crisscrossed with faded scars. He took a closer look at her wrist and saw a thin, broken metal band. A widow's mark. In her culture, it wasn't a symbol of mourning, it was a curse. Widows were considered unlucky. Worse, if they had children, they were seen as failed bonds. No one would take them in. No one would help. To accept them was to invite ruin. Unless... Ren now understood her desperate plea. In Vela's society, a widow could not keep her children unless bonded to a mate, and humans were among the only races permitted to form legal bonds without the approval of her caste. She wasn't asking for love. She was asking for survival. He sat in silence, watching the children drift into sleep by the heater. Kyo clutched his boot. Nari rested against the wall with her brother's hand in hers. Ren looked down at the faint glow of city lights beyond the pod's vent. "I don't know who you are," he whispered to the unconscious Vela, but I'm not leaving you like this, not tonight. He dimmed the lights and sat beside the door. As the pod hummed gently, keeping out the noise of the market, a broken family had just taken the first uncertain step toward something neither of them had expected. A beginning. When Vela woke, the first thing she felt was warmth. The air wasn't biting, the floor wasn't hard. A blanket covered her legs. Her body ached, but it wasn't from cold. Her vision slowly adjusted to the dim light overhead. Then she saw them. Her children. Nari and Kyo lay curled beside her on the soft floor mat, their tiny hands still gripping the edge of her robe. Across the room, the human sat slouched in a chair. His head was tilted back, eyes closed, arms folded. He looked tired, but calm. She panicked. "Where am I?" she whispered. The human stirred and looked at her. "You're safe," he said softly. "You fainted in the market. I brought you here." She scanned the space, no chains, no force fields, just a pod, basic but clean, a jug of water, a folded blanket, food on a tray. Her children stirred. Nari sat up and hugged her tightly. "Mama, you're awake." Vela trembled, holding them both. Then she turned to the man. "I remember you, human." He nodded. "My name is Ren." "Vela," she said, barely audible. Silence fell. Then Vela asked, voice shaking, "Did I say something strange in the market?" Ren met her eyes. "You asked me to become your husband and take your children." Her face turned red. She looked down. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to force you. I thought I was dying." "Why me?" Vela took a long breath. "My people. They see widows as cursed. When my mate died in the war, they stripped everything. My home, my rights, even food rations. No one would hire me. No one would house me." Her voice cracked. "We ran from city to city. Doors slammed. I begged. I stole. I did things I'm ashamed of just to feed my children." She paused, then continued. 2 days ago, I heard rumors, a human market. They said your kind was kinder. I thought maybe one would listen. I had nothing left." Ren sat in silence. "Why marriage?" he asked. Vela closed her eyes. "Because alien children can only stay with their mother if she's bonded again. Otherwise, the law sees them as abandoned. The patrols would take them." Ren looked over at Nari and Kyo. "Just kids. Tired, hungry, fragile." He sighed. "I'm not the marrying kind. I travel. I don't even have a real home." Vela nodded. "I understand. You've already done more than anyone. You don't owe us anything." But her voice held a sadness too deep to hide. Then Nari stood up, her face serious. "You don't have to be our father," she said bravely, "but thank you for saving Mama." Ren smiled faintly. "You're strong just like your mother." A loud knock startled them all. Ren jumped to the door and opened the visual screen. A patrol drone hovered outside. "Human citizen," it said coldly, "you are sheltering an alien widow and her offspring. This is a violation of Code 88 unless proper bonding is declared." "What?" "The widow is marked. The offspring are undocumented. They will be removed in 12 hours unless bonded to a registered male guardian." Then it flew away. The silence that followed was suffocating. Vela's face went pale. 12 hours, that's all. Ren looked at her, then at the children, then out the pod window. His jaw tightened. He didn't know what lay ahead. He didn't know if he could be a husband, a father, or anything in between. But one thing was clear. He wasn't letting anyone tear them apart. Not again. The silence inside the cargo pod was deep and heavy, like the stillness after a storm. Ren stood staring at the closed door, its metal frame humming softly from the drone's propulsion wake. His mind spun, heart racing, not with fear but with the weight of what now lay on his shoulders. 12 hours, Vela repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. She cradled Kyo, who had crawled into her lap, his face tucked into her chest. Ren rubbed the back of his neck. He hadn't planned to stay long on Solaris Prime. A day, maybe two. Trade some salvaged circuit boards, fill his canisters, move on. But now he looked at Nari, standing beside her mother, her small shoulders squared as if trying to be the protector. Then at Vela, pale, trembling but not broken. Never broken. And something shifted inside him. "There has to be a way," Ren said. "Some kind of loophole, a temporary permit." Vela shook her head. "Our laws don't allow loopholes for the marked. Once you're declared a widow, you are stripped of caste rights. Bonding is the only protection. Ren sat heavily on the edge of the bed. So what exactly does bonding mean? Is it permanent? She hesitated. Yes, in our system, bonding is a full legal union, not symbolic, not romantic. It means shared rights, property, obligations. It makes you the official mate in every system on this moon. He let out a low breath, and without it, they'll take my children, place them in the state youth housing initiative. If they're lucky, they'll be adopted by another caste, if not. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Ren looked around the cramped pod. This wasn't a place for a family. Hell, it wasn't a place for himself. And yet the idea of walking away, of letting them face that future alone, made his stomach turn. What would I have to do? He asked finally. Vela blinked. You would have to submit to the bonding ceremony. It can be done through a sanctioned tablet with retinal confirmation and biometric match. Once confirmed, the children become registered under your care. Ren stood. Do you have the tablet? Vela nodded and reached beneath the floor mat. She produced a small, scarred device, barely holding together with exposed wiring. She activated it, and a shimmering interface glowed between them. The screen read, Bonding contract, widow claim. Requesting party, Vela of the Kareth. Status unbonded. Offspring Nari age 7, Kyo age 3. Receiving party, unknown. Place hand to confirm bond. You don't have to do this, Vela said quietly. You've already done more than anyone. We can hide again. We always do. Ren ignored her and placed his hand on the pad. The scanner flickered. A light pulse passed over his palm. A moment later, a sound chimed. Biometric match confirmed. Bond accepted. Status legally mated. Child guardianship transferred. The words floated in the air between them. Vela stared at the screen. Her lips parted slightly, and a small, broken gasp left her mouth. Ren sat back down, hands on his knees. I'm not expecting thanks, he said, and I can't promise to be what they need, but no one's taking them while I'm breathing. Kyo peered at him from behind Vela's robe. The boy slowly crawled forward and sat beside him. Papa, he asked. Ren stiffened. I'm not your real father, little one, but I'll do my best to be here. Kyo reached out and touched his boot. Vela's eyes shimmered. She said nothing, just held Nari closer. The girl didn't speak, but she slowly reached across the floor and rested her hand on Ren's. They stayed like that for a long time. It wasn't long before the system registered the bond. Ren's comm device lit up with a warning. New marital bond detected. Public verification required within 24 planetary hours. Failure to comply will void bond status. Vela read the alert, her shoulders slumped. They want a public display, she said, to prove the bond is real. A wedding? Ren asked, incredulous. A trial before the council, not just to test your sincerity, to humiliate me. Ren frowned. What kind of test? The trial of fire, an ancient rite from before we joined the outer colonies. You speak before the elders and place your hand in a bowl of living flame. It doesn't burn unless you lie. He narrowed his eyes. That sounds like nonsense. To most, yes, but they still believe. And the flames do react through bioheat signature or something else. It's not just ritual, it's politics. Ren nodded. Fine, I'll do it. Vela looked up sharply. You would risk that for us? You're bonded to me now. That means they challenge you, they challenge me. And I don't like bullies. They spent the night in tense silence. Ren barely slept. He cleaned his gear, refilled his ration packs, and double-checked his ID. Vela bathed the children in warm water, braided Nari's tangled hair, and sewed a tear in her robe. She kept glancing at Ren, her expression caught between wonder and guilt. When morning came, they walked to the council square. It was a wide-open plaza paved with old-world stone. At the center stood a platform ringed by torches and 3 carved thrones where the elder tribunal sat. The crowd gathered quickly. Traders, locals, outcasts, all curious to see the human who dared bond with a cursed widow. Vela stood tall, though her hands trembled. Nari clutched her robe. Kyo clung to Ren's leg. The lead elder, draped in shimmering silver and red, raised his hand. Ren of Terra, he announced, you have claimed the widow Vela and her offspring. Speak now. Ren stepped forward. I claim them. Why, the elder demanded. She is cursed, unfit. Ren glanced at Vela, then stared the elder down. Because she survived what your laws would not forgive, because her children deserve better than this. The crowd murmured, the elder scowled. Step to the fire, he commanded. Ren approached the raised brazier. Blue flame danced within, cold as ice to look at, yet thrumming with strange heat. Place your hand in the flame, the elder ordered, and declare your truth. Ren didn't flinch. He thrust his hand into the fire. It didn't burn. I speak the truth. I bond with Vela not for gain or status, but because she and her children deserve safety. I offer it freely. The flame shimmered, then withdrew from his skin like a caress. Gasps echoed. The third elder, a stern woman with violet eyes, leaned forward. What makes you think your claim is enough? You are not one of us. Ren turned to the crowd. Then perhaps it's time someone reminded you what honor looks like. I didn't see any of you helping her in the market. I didn't see any of you feeding her children. I did. Silence followed, then the elder woman stood. The bond stands. Let no one question its legitimacy. The other elders hesitated, then nodded. Ren turned back to Vela. She stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Her lips trembled. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and touched his face. Thank you, she whispered. Nari and Kyo rushed to them, grabbing his hands. And in that moment, beneath alien sky and watching eyes, a family was forged. The pod door slammed shut behind Ren with a hollow clang as he stepped out into the dim evening light. The sky above Solaris Prime had turned a rusted orange, the twin suns setting behind shattered cliff faces in the west. The day had been long, far longer than he'd expected when he first stepped foot on this world. The trial was over. The bond had been accepted. For the first time in a long time, Vela and her children were safe, at least on paper. But that didn't mean the world around them had changed. Ren checked the small solar battery unit strapped to the side of the pod. The readings blinked amber, nearly charged. He looked back toward the alleyway, instinct tugging at him. The space outside the rental pod was narrow, cluttered with spare crates and discarded tech. Shadows were long now, soundless, uneasy. He turned to go back inside. A rock hit the metal frame of the pod. He froze. Then another. Go back to your own planet, human. Ren turned slowly. 5 figures emerged from the shadows, their postures tense. Locals, 3 alien males, 2 of unknown gender. One wore a face scarf. Another had eyes that glowed faint red in the dim light. All wore civilian gear. One carried a pipe. You brought that widow scum into our district, the leader snarled. Claimed her like some market fruit. Ren squared his stance. You have a problem with my family. The leader spat on the ground. They're cursed. You shame yourself, and now you shame us. Ren glanced at the cracked pod window. Inside, he could just see Nari's small face pressed to the glass, fear in her wide red eyes. The smallest figure tossed another rock. It struck Ren's arm. He didn't flinch. He stepped forward. You want me? I'm right here. The one with the pipe lunged. Ren ducked low, sidestepping just as the weapon swung past his head. He grabbed the attacker's wrist and twisted, forcing the pipe to clatter to the ground. With his other hand, he shoved the attacker backward into a crate. Another came at him, fists raised. Ren blocked the first hit and returned a solid punch to the gut. The alien doubled over, coughing. Behind him, the others hesitated. You're insane, someone hissed. No, Ren said, chest heaving. I'm a husband, I'm a father. Come near them again and I swear I'll forget the rules. They ran. Dust swirled in the air behind them, lit by the glow of the pod's overhead lights. Ren stood alone in the quiet. Then the pod door slid open. Vela rushed out, barefoot, her robe flapping behind her. You're hurt. I'm fine, he muttered, though he was. Blood dripped from a gash on his forearm. She led him inside. Nari brought a wet cloth. Kyo offered a dented first aid kit. No one cried, no one panicked, they simply acted. Like they had done this before. Does this happen often? Ren asked as Vela cleaned the wound. She didn't answer right away. Then, yes, everywhere we go. Ren sighed, well, not this time. Vela looked up. What do you mean? I'm staying, and if they come back, I'll be ready. She studied his face. Even if it gets worse. Yes. There was a long pause. Then Keo whispered from his blanket, "You're strong, Papa." Ren smiled, wincing, sometimes. Later that night, when the children had finally drifted to sleep, Vela sat beside Ren near the small heater. She looked at him with tired eyes that still shimmered from all they'd seen. "You didn't have to fight." "I did." "Why, you could have walked away days ago." Ren didn't answer right away. He looked at the floor, then at her. "Because no one fought for me either, and I won't let that happen to you." She didn't speak, only reached out and placed her hand gently over his. Not as a plea, not as a bondmate, just a woman. Grateful. Morning came with a soft knock. Ren moved to the door cautiously. Vela gathered the children behind her, but the figure standing outside wasn't one of the attackers. It was an old alien woman, stooped with age, her face lined with green ink markings. "May I come in?" Ren hesitated, then nodded. The woman stepped in, taking in the small pod and the family at its center. "I saw what happened," she said, "last night and at the trial." Vela's voice was tight. "We didn't start it." "I know," the woman said kindly. "That's why I'm here." She turned to Ren. "You bonded with the widow, you faced the trial. You stood in fire, but the world is still cruel." Ren said nothing. The woman smiled faintly. "There is one way to protect them fully, not just in bond, but in law. The council can name you guardian, officially." "What does that mean?" Ren asked. "Adoption, recognition. No one would be able to challenge your claim to the children, not even the caste lords." Vela's breath caught, "And if they refuse?" "Then the bond remains, but it will always be at risk." Ren nodded. "What do I need to do?" The Grand Council Hall was a structure of white marble and polished obsidian, gleaming under the high twin suns. Alien banners fluttered along the walls, each etched with symbols older than the colony itself. Crowds filled the observation decks. Whispers echoed across the domed chamber as Ren stepped into the center circle. Vela sat on the lower bench, her arms around Nari and Keo. She looked pale again, tense. Ren stood alone. An elder in golden robes raised a ceremonial staff. "State your claim." Ren cleared his throat. "I request guardianship of these children. I offer it not by blood, but by choice." Another elder, taller and colder, sneered. "Why should a human raise our kind?" Ren's voice didn't shake. "Because I already am and no one else did." Murmurs, some angry, some thoughtful. A third elder gestured to the children. "Do they accept you?" Nari stood up. "He reads to us. He stays up when Keo has nightmares. He brings us food. He listens. He's our papa." Keo nodded. "He makes the warm blanket bed. He fixed Mama's shoe." The silence that followed was complete. "Then, would you die for them, human?" Ren met the elder's gaze. "I almost did. I would again." A pause. Then the old woman elder who had visited their pod stepped forward. "The council agrees. Ren of Terra is now guardian and father to the children of Vela." Applause, gasps, and somewhere in the crowd a single cheer. Ren turned to Vela. She had tears on her cheeks. Her hands covered her mouth. The children ran to him. He dropped to one knee and embraced them. In that moment, he was more than a traveler. He was home. The wind blew gently across the sloping hills east of the capital district, brushing wild grass and loose synthweeds in soft, waving lines. Just beyond the market domes and the rusted junkyards of Solaris Prime, there stood a small community built from salvaged parts, solar panels, and hope. Homes of mismatched shapes, painted in bright colors. Gardens formed in old transport containers. Children played in dust and sunlight. And among those houses, one stood slightly higher on the hill, a dome-topped structure with a small porch, a growing garden, and laughter within. Ren stepped out, his boots crunching against gravel, and looked down the valley. The morning light was soft on his face. His hands were calloused now, his shoulders broader. He held a small toolkit in one hand and a rolled tarp in the other. Behind him, the door creaked open. "You forgot your hat," Vela said gently, holding it out. He turned and took it from her, eyes warm. "Thanks." Her smile lingered, not sad, not desperate, just quiet and content. Inside the home, Nari laughed as she chased Kyo around a woven rug, their footsteps padded by the new mats Ren had installed himself. The home was modest, but to them it was everything. A sanctuary, a beginning. The weeks following the guardianship ruling had moved quickly. With the council's unexpected approval of Ren as legal father, his name had become a whispered legend through the slums and refugee halls of Solaris Prime. One evening, as Ren returned from helping Vela secure donated food crates for their neighbors, a group waited at the edge of their community plot. 3 humans, 2 aliens. All wore patchwork uniforms with the crest of the Interworld Rebuilding Program. The leader, a tall woman with a regulation braid and heavy tool belt, stepped forward. "You're the one who stood in fire." Ren raised a brow. "I didn't exactly ask for the spotlight." She smiled. "Doesn't matter, what you did mattered. You gave a name to the voiceless. We're building something here, real homes, schools, aid stations. Families like yours need a place to grow. We could use someone like you." Ren shook his head. "I fix rusted joints and scare off bullies. I'm not a leader." "You are," she said firmly, "because you already stood up when it mattered." He didn't say yes, but a week later he wore the patch on his jacket. Vela flourished in her own quiet way. She helped manage a shared kitchen built from a disused shuttle hull, cooking meals for dozens from whatever rations could be scraped together. Her hands, once brittle and trembling, moved with purpose now. Neighbors who once crossed streets to avoid her began stopping by for soup or advice. She spoke little but smiled often, and when she laughed, truly laughed, Ren would pause whatever he was doing just to listen. Their children changed too. Nari no longer kept one arm around her brother everywhere she went. She had friends now, a quiet girl with gold freckles, a fast-talking boy with mechanical wings. Kyo, ever curious, spent hours dismantling old tools and rebuilding them into strange new shapes. He once presented Ren with a security spider made from 3 spoons, a servo, and a toy eye. "It watches for bad people," he said. Ren smiled and put it beside the front door. One evening, as the stars began to blink awake, the family sat on their small porch. Nari curled beside Vela, book in hand. Kyo leaned against Ren, sucking on a sugar root pop. The night was peaceful. Gentle music floated from a nearby home. "You didn't have to stay," Vela said softly. Ren smiled. "You've said that before." "I know," she said, glancing down. "But I want you to understand, you didn't just save us, you chose us." He looked out at the valley. "At first," he said slowly, "I thought I was doing something decent, noble, like I was helping for a few days before moving on, but somewhere between Nari handing me her half of a protein bar and Kyo calling me Papa, this stopped being about duty." Vela looked at him, eyes gentle. "Do you regret it?" Ren watched the boy sleeping beside him. Not for a second. Change didn't come easy, but it came. Some neighbors still watched from afar, their expressions unreadable. Others left spare loaves or coolant cartridges on the doorstep. Vela had been seen, heard, welcomed. And when the Interworld Rebuilding Program officially registered the Valley community as Haven Sector 9, Ren's family was named among its founding residents. He spent his days now helping newcomers find beds, food, and space to breathe. He organized old tech storage, repaired burst pipes, broke up arguments between species who had never shared a street before. He never wanted the role, but he never let it go. Vela often teased him, "You're the mayor of misfits now." He shrugged, better than wandering alone. Late one night, after the children were tucked under their solar thread blankets and the kitchen cleared, Vela stood by the window. "I used to dream of falling asleep in a safe place, just once, not worrying if the door would hold, not listening for footsteps, just sleep." Ren looked up from the heater he was repairing. "Do you still dream that?" "No," she said. "Why not?" She turned and smiled. "Because I'm living it." He set the tool down. She crossed the room slowly, reached out and took his hand. Their fingers entwined without effort. No declarations, no rituals, just warmth. In time, they removed the old pod from the yard. Kyo disassembled half of it for parts. Nari used a side panel to paint a mural on their outer wall, a swirling scene of stars, 2 moons, and 4 figures holding hands. At the bottom, she wrote, "Home is who stays." Ren stood in front of it a long time, arms crossed, chest tight. Vela stepped up beside him. She asked if she could paint something. I didn't expect this. He nodded. It's perfect. Not every day was easy. Supplies ran low. New refugees meant more strain. Old prejudices resurfaced. But the house on the hill stood. The family inside it stood stronger. And every night, as the lights dimmed, Vela would look at the man who had once walked through a marketplace with no plan and wonder how she had ever thought herself alone. He never told her how lost he had been before that day. He didn't need to. She could see it in how he looked at the children, how he turned toward her in sleep, how he stayed. The rainy season had begun on Solaris Prime. For 3 days straight, the skis wept in long, steady sheets, turning the dusty streets of Haven Sector 9 into trickling paths of mud and reflection. But the people stayed. They worked. They laughed. Children played barefoot in puddles. Rain was better than the old days. Rain meant there was life. Ren stood under the overhang of the house on the hill, watching the storm wash over the garden beds he and Vela had built. The new seeds had taken root. It would be a good season. Behind him, laughter erupted. Kyo darted past the doorway in mismatched socks, chased by a giggling Nari who clutched a fabric cape made from old solar sails. Vela stood in the kitchen, stirring something warm in a pot. The smell drifted through the home, spice, herbs, comfort. Rain or not, it was a good day. Word of Haven Sector 9's success had spread far beyond the capital. In a galaxy still reeling from fractured alliances, refugee flights, and the collapse of systems long believed immortal, the notion that humans and aliens could not just coexist but rebuild together was enough to catch attention. 2 weeks into the season, a delegation arrived. They came with polished boots and nervous smiles, bearing clipboards and fancy cameras. They toured the kitchens, interviewed families, took holopics with children and planted flags beside the new school in progress. Ren didn't like it. "They smile like we're a success story," he murmured one night, sitting on the porch with Vela. "But they don't see what it took to get here." She nodded. "They see flowers, not the ash they grew from." "Exactly." But even so, the attention brought help. Supplies, solar converters, building materials, a medical unit staffed with real healers. And new families. More widows, more orphans, more wanderers like he once was. They came from scattered systems, speaking broken languages, carrying nothing but pain and the last slivers of hope. Ren greeted them all. He taught some to repair solar grids, found others places to sleep, listened even when the words hurt. He wasn't just a father now, he had become something else, a root steady in the soil anchoring others. One stormy evening, as the wind howled and lightning danced beyond the hills, Vela found him sitting alone near the garden beds, a datapad on his lap. He didn't hear her approach. "Rent." He looked up, his face was different now, less closed, less haunted, but still that edge of wariness lingered. "I was writing something. Can I see?" He hesitated, then turned the screen. The words scrolled slowly, written with care. To the one who whispered in the dust, who had no strength left to beg, who still tried to protect tiny hands from a world too cruel. "I didn't save you. You saved me." Vela reached for his hand. "You don't have to explain." "I want to for them, for later." She leaned into his shoulder. They sat in silence as the storm passed. The next month brought something Ren never expected, a message. A sleek courier drone landed outside their house, bearing a holographic seal. He activated the display and blinked at the sender. "Commander Herrick's Vale, Galactic Alliance Council." The message played. "Citizen Ren of Haven Sector 9. Your actions have created ripples far beyond your sector. Your guardianship, defense, and leadership represent a model the Council wishes to amplify. We invite you to serve as regional liaison for interspecies integration initiatives. This is not a reward. It is a call to build more havens, to give more families what yours found." Ren let the message finish. He looked at Vela. She looked back calmly. "What will you say?" He exhaled slowly. "I'll tell them I'm not leaving." She smiled. "But I'll help them build more." On the day Kyo turned 4, the rain finally stopped. The sky over Solaris Prime bloomed with color. Clouds drifted like soft sails, and the community gathered for food, stories, and games. Nari had planned a scavenger hunt. Keo wore a handmade crown. Neighbors brought gifts, books, puzzle cubes, a coat stitched with his name. Late in the evening, as the suns dipped low, the children gathered near the mural. The painting had grown. Nari had added more hands, more faces. She had drawn Vela in a new robe, Ren with a wrench in one hand and a shield in the other. And in the center, 4 words painted in looping letters. "We are still here." Ren stood at the edge, hands in his pockets, watching the children laugh. Vela stepped beside him. "He doesn't remember the market, the dirt, the fear." "Good," Ren said. She looked at him. "You gave him that." He turned to her, quiet. "We gave it to each other." That night, as they settled into bed, Vela lay curled against him. The room was dark but for the soft glow of the heater. Nari's soft breathing came from the next room. Keo mumbled something in his sleep. Vela whispered, "Do you know what I see when I look at you now?" Ren shifted slightly. "What?" "A man who made room in his heart for strangers. A man who stopped running and built something no fire could burn." He didn't answer. His arms tightened around her. "And you?" she asked. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. A woman who stood in ashes and still believed in light. The next morning, a new pod arrived. A single widow with twin daughters. Her hands trembled as she stepped out. Her eyes darted. Fear lived in her posture. Ren walked to her slowly, offering no badge, no orders, just a hand. "Welcome to Haven," he said. She took it, and the roots grew deeper.